On today's show, the Houston Rockets get the revenge dub against the Phoenix Suns in their second meetup in Arizona. Was this possibly Jalen Green's best game of his career? Alperen, Sengun, and Fred VanVleet both with massive bounce-back performances after their struggles last game. Plus, we get an update on the Tari Eason injury situation as he's set to have surgery on the leg that's kept him out all year. It's all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
Throw it up to Jalen Green.
Sengun here in the short row. Oh, my, that's the no-look.
Jabari for three and the win.
Yeah! Look at Tari Eason.
Here comes Tari.
No!
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
The Houston Rockets select Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
One thing I have never done is not made the playoffs, and so we want to take that step here as well.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets. Free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 if your bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day. Thank you for being an everydayer, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for making the show part of your day every single day. Joining us now is your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. And Madison, a very night and day Rockets team from the last time we recapped a Rockets Suns game, because we were a little dejected the last time we talked about this team. With the fact that, things kind of went a little awry in that last Rockets Suns game. They got their revenge, though, in this one, a 118-109 win. And when I said this team felt like a completely different team literally from the jump, that's exactly how it felt in this game, because we've talked about the slow starts, the slow first quarters, not coming out with the right energy, the right intensity, the right physicality, whatever, all the different things that Ime Udoka has talked about a lot this season. The Rockets answered that and then some in this game, came out with a huge first quarter, 38-19, gave themselves a huge buffer against the Suns. Jalen had 11 in the first quarter. Fred had 11 in the first quarter on his way to a really impressive bounce back game. This was exactly how you wanted to see the Rockets kind of respond after that loss to Phoenix Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, I think today the Rockets, so I think the Rockets with this later Phoenix Suns game really focused in defensively, and I think that was the major difference between the two games. I mean, I think their attention to detail in the game plan, that first game, Suns kind of hit the Rockets in the mouth. They couldn't score, but also their defense was pretty poor. Their backside rotations were pretty poor. Their attention to detail in the game plan, getting the ball out of the Stars' hands, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, was pretty poor. I mean, Booker ended the first quarter with, I think, 20 points.
Well, it was poor early, right? Like, that was the issue. Yeah. They let him have 20 in the first. They basically spotted him 20 points, and then they woke up and they're like, okay, maybe we should actually game plan for Booker.
Yes, exactly. And so that's what I'm talking about, is that defense and attention to detail out the gate. And these slow starts have been a thing for the Rockets. So it was good for them to have really good attention to detail. And I think they stuck to the plan, getting the ball out of their hands early, making other guys initiate the offense, which actually caused a lot of turnovers, a lot of forced turnovers, and really got the Rockets offense into rhythm, getting out and running. A lot of fast break points for the Rockets. And of course, Jalen Green with a spectacular game and a good start early.
Yeah, absolutely. 28 fast break points for the Houston Rockets in this game. 19 points scored on 19 Suns turnovers. Yeah, this was a game where they really did lock in. I thought from the jump they were locked into this game. It wasn't one of those games where they mess around for the first quarter, 15 minutes, whatever, before they wake up and decide to get back into it, right? They brought the right energy from the jump. And that's what's great is it kind of afforded them a bit of that buffer, right? To where when Phoenix came back, had a stronger second quarter than the Rockets did, right? A 25-16, frame there in the second. So the Rockets not so great there in that second quarter, but it afforded them that buffer zone to where, it's kind of eerily similar to the last game, only the Rockets were kind of the Suns in this one, where you had the big first quarter, and that's what gave you enough breathing room to survive the lapses in the second, in the third, to weather the storm as the Suns kind of came roaring back and got close to, almost taking the lead there about halfway through the fourth quarter. I believe it was 99-98 or something, like a 1-point game about halfway through the fourth quarter. Suns rallied. They were right there. And this was, after all we'll get into the drama, the ejection, Beal, Jalen, we'll get into that in a second. But to have the Rockets have, that breathing room was so important for this team, and a big part of their success in this game. I know we talked about the defense, but really Jalen Green offensively in this game, this is what we've seen flashes of it, right? But this is when we talk about what we needed to see from this team and what we were hoping to see as far as like a year 3 leap from Jalen Green. This is what we were hoping to see, right? Is just when you see this version of Jalen play, when he's so elite, when he's so effective at scoring the ball, when the outside shot is falling and it's opening up the rest of his game, he really is. He looks unguardable at times, right? 34 points, 12 of 23 shooting. He was 6 of 12 from downtown. He was getting his teammates involved. He was rebounding. I thought, even though he only had 4 assists in this game, I thought his reads were really incredible. He was doing a great job breaking down the defense, making those extra passes, right? Those hockey assist kind of things. And Ime Udoka talked about that postgame, right? Highlighting the fact that Jalen did a phenomenal job of just steering the offense at points in this game.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest difference in Jalen's this game. Jalen had in the previous game he had with the Suns. Both were spectacular shot-making displays, right? We both had. But the little things that Jalen has honestly gotten really good at on this team and that have been kind of overshadowed by his poor shooting, right? But the little things that he's over the course of this season gotten really, really good at, the backside rotations, the solid defense, the just creation, offensive creation, moving the ball, getting hockey assists, that sway, that gravity that Jalen has. He was able to combine that in that second game with his incredible shot-making ability, and this is the Jalen Green that we hope to someday get consistently, and that it combined for a masterful game from Jalen. There was a big difference between this Jalen and the Jalen we had the previous game, which he both put up great numbers, but now you have a more complete game when you add on the little things that we've been seeing him get better at. We've been seeing him. A lot of people don't realize, but Jalen has gotten a lot better defensively, a lot better with his rotations, and then his reads honestly have taken a leap over the course of this year. Honestly, his creation using his gravity, other than Sengun, he's the only other player that has that type of gravity and can actually create for the rest of the offense to get into rhythm. And so it was good to see him not just taking a whole lot of shots because he's hot, but actually letting the game come to him and affecting it in multiple different ways, in which just showed a really impressive showing for Jalen Green, and honestly is the reason we won this game.
Yeah, last game it kind of felt like Jalen was almost forced to be the offense because nobody else could get anything going, because nobody else could generate their shots. He was the one guy, and we talked about this last pod, is just he's the one guy on the team that can consistently generate his own look. Now, whether they're good looks or bad looks, that's a different discussion. He can generate his looks, though, at will. This game, he let the offense kind of come in. This felt like the perfect kind of, he's the tip of the spear. He's the forefront of the attack. And when the offense is coming, when he's knocking down the shots, this is how good it can look. And this is why when we get a taste of it, we're like, oh man, like if we could get this consistently, then yeah, the Rockets clearly are a year 3 Jalen Green leap away from rather than being a team that's on the outside looking in of the play-in, they could have very easily been a team that's in the mix for the play-in, or even potentially, that 6-7 seed kind of territory if we had gotten this version of Jalen Green consistently throughout the season. And that doesn't mean 34 points every single game. It just means this type of Jalen that lets the game come to him, that knocks down the shots that he's given, that makes those. It's not even about like him collapsing the defense and doing all this hard work. It's the little extra passes, right? Like, when the ball is moving around the perimeter, not holding it and then taking a bad shot, right? Making sure you're making that next pass to the corner to get a wide open. So instead of a good look, you're getting a great look in the corner, or the little, like noticing, how aggressive he was about making it a point on Suns free throws to get in from the 3-point line and help rebound at the free throw line, right? It's such a simple thing, but just crashing the glass on a free throw, right? So that you can get out and run if it's a miss. Those little things that he does. And in addition, I know you mentioned the defense. I really did like, some of the possessions, especially late, that he was D'ing up on Devin Booker. I thought he was doing a great job on switches, really getting a hand in his face. It's really hard to guard Devin Booker, period, for anybody. But when you do have that level of speed and athleticism that Jalen has, even though he can get bodied sometimes by bigger players, right? Knocked off his spots, whatever, you should still be able to keep up with quicker, smaller, faster guys. And it felt like he did a good job of staying with Booker and giving him good, honest contests on a lot of his shots, making him work for a lot of his buckets. 7 of 17 on his way to 24 points in this game before he unfortunately left due to injury, that weird moment near the end where he and Royce O'Neal, like he stepped on Royce O'Neal's ankle and then he went. I look, hopefully Booker's okay. Never want to see injuries to anybody. He went straight back to the locker room. Haven't seen or heard an update from the Suns on him, but I actually have to take that back. I think I saw X-rays were negative or something. So hopefully nothing serious for Devin Booker, but this was an impressive win. We got more to talk about from this one, though, because Alperen Sengun came back in a big way after his ejection and his frustration with his 6 fouls. Last game, he had a much stronger bounce back game in this one. We saw the good version of Fred VanVleet again. Got to talk about him. Additional thoughts from this one, as well as we've got an update on Tari Eason, finally set to undergo surgery on the leg that has been keeping him out all season. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Get buckets with your first bet on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 if your bet wins. And all you have to do is wager $5. It's that simple. Bet on all your favorite NBA players and teams with quick bets, live same-game parlays, exclusive props, and so much more. Right now, you can take a look at the outright betting favorites for this year's NBA championship. The Boston Celtics, the far and away favorites at plus 210. Denver Nuggets right behind them at plus 420 to repeat this season. The LA Clippers not far behind them at plus 500. Milwaukee Bucks plus 700. And then in distant 5th place, maybe no help after the Houston Rockets revenge dub, the Phoenix Suns plus 1,800 to win it all this season. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon for all that action and so much more. Shoot your shot at FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, Madison, a big part of why the Rockets looked so much better in this game. Obviously, Jalen Green was the tip of the spear. He was fantastic with his 34 points, but it was also getting the contributions from the other key guys that they needed in Alperen Sengun and Fred VanVleet, which Alp, much better game in this meetup or this rematch with the Suns after the foul trouble, keeping him on the bench for so much of last game, and then getting frustrated with the 6th foul, which, we talked about. It was kind of a BS call. It is what it is. Gets ejected, lets his frustrations known, comes back this game, much better all-around performance, 21 points, 10 boards, couple assists, couple steals. He faded a little bit after the first quarter. He had 8 quick first points, I believe 3 of 5 in that first quarter. So only 13 across the rest of the way. But he kind of didn't need to be the scoring fulcrum as much in this game because Jalen and Fred took on a lot more of the scoring burden and even more so of the playmaking burden, with Fred having yet another, his 13th, I believe, 2010 game of the season. Fred VanVleet, 24 points, 11 assists in this game, 8 of 15 shooting. This was one of Fred's best games of the season, and this is why you see, it's frustrating when we see the inconsistency from Fred, where you have the bad games from Fred, but then you see the good games, and you're like, all right, this is why you're being paid $40 million plus to have these kind of games to steer the youngsters in the right direction.
Yeah, it was good to see Fred get back on track. He kind of hasn't been himself since he's returned from injury. And this is the Fred we've come accustomed to seeing all year. It probably just took him some time to get back in rhythm. And he had this 3-point shot going. But more importantly, and that's really important for Fred, he's typically not off. You know what I mean? But that was really important. He got the 3-point shot going. But more impressively, Fred got Alperen back involved offensively in this game in the second half. There were some special moments, I thought, where Fred found himself in the middle of the defense and he had an easy mid-range, or, he could have forced a shot, and he just made a way to get it to Sengun in a creative manner where Sengun could go one-on-one from the elbow, from the free throw line, and he worked guys out from those positions. And it just wasn't your traditional dump it down to Sengun and let him go to work, because that hasn't worked anymore because teams are triple teaming him now, right? So he found some very creative ways to get Sengun the ball in one-on-one situations where he could go quick and score. And I thought that was a credit to Fred VanVleet's high IQ. You know what I mean? Just really good basketball plays from Fred VanVleet, keeping everybody in this team involved. And that led to better defensive effort as well. I think usually LP plays better defensively once his offense is clicking as well. And as you know, he got going in the first quarter. So I really want to just tip my hat to both of those guys.
And look, that shouldn't be the case. You shouldn't, we talked about this, before. It's just, you shouldn't let your offense dictate your defense or your engagement or whatever. You should be locked in as much as possible. But let's face facts. That's sometimes the case, right? It's sometimes you'll hang your head on defense. If you're struggling offensively, if you're letting the refs get in your head, whatever, you're going to be more susceptible to taking a play off or not paying attention defensively or not giving 100% effort, whatever. Not excusing it, not saying it's okay. It's just a fact of the game, right? It's something we deal with. It's human nature, right? You get bogged down mentally, you're dealing with stuff, whatever. Not excuses. It just is what it is. What I'm curious about, and I want your thoughts on this, I really felt like Alp I couldn't decide. I couldn't make up my mind if Alp wasn't being like physical enough or strong enough there, especially in the fourth quarter when the Suns went small and they were even guarding him at times. They were running like that 3-2 zone, and we saw it in the first matchup. They were doing it a little bit in the fourth quarter as well. And then Alp would kind of get the ball in the middle of the floor sometimes. And then you'd have KD picks him up and it's at the free throw line. And we saw multiple possessions late in the fourth where I wasn't sure. It didn't look like KD was fouling him. But at the same time, there were some missed buckets late that I kind of was scratching my head. I was like, Alp should be able to bulldoze KD down low. There shouldn't be. I know KD's long. He's 7 foot, good wingspan. But I wasn't sure if it was. So what did you think about Alp's just his play there late in the game specifically?
I don't really recall many of those. I mean, so the possessions,
it was three possessions late in the game, and he finally got a bucket on the third one, I think it was, in the fourth quarter. But it was 2-3 possessions in a row before that where it felt like Fred was kind of forcing the issue, trying to get Alp involved.
Getting the ball, yeah.
Yeah, getting him the ball, trying to get him in the middle of the floor. And it also came, it was kind of one of those because it came off the heels of the Rockets had a couple possessions where I think Fred had hit a 3 on the wing, to open up, kind of open up the zone a little bit. Then Dillon came down and hit another 3 on the other wing a little bit later on. But it was kind of in between some of those possessions. They were trying to get the ball to the inside, right? Collapse the zone. And I wasn't sure if it was just Sengun just missing a couple shots that he normally makes, or if he was really actually struggling with KD, or if it was KD was fouling him and I didn't notice it. It was one of those where it was peculiar because I really thought Alp should have been able to be more dominant down the stretch of this game. And that's why I said earlier, he had the quick 8 first points, but he kind of faded as the game went along, despite Fred's desire to keep him involved offensively.
Yeah, I think that's something that I think Alp has been struggling with lately. His finishing at the rim just hasn't been the same as it was the first half of the season. I think the first 30, 40 games, he really was at an all-star level. And since guys have shown him multiple looks, his rhythm and touch around the rim is kind of just not been as good, right? And so maybe it's just more of that. But I think he was aggressive. I thought it was creative to get him into some of those one-on-one situations. And I from what I saw him make some of those plays as well. So I wouldn't read too much into it. That's what I'd say about it.
I will say one final note here, just on the individual kind of production standpoint. Amin Thompson, nice kind of game again from him. Great defensive presence, but just he was a bit of a non-factor last game, which is kind of rare, right? We've become so accustomed to Amin having such a big impact on these games as a rookie, mind you, right? This is a rookie we're talking about, and yet when he has a game or two where he struggles or his impact feels a lot less than, it's surprising. And that was one of those games last game, right? Where it's like you look and you realize you're like, wow, Amin didn't really do anything in this game. Like you didn't really remember him playing even. And I can't remember the last time that happened. So to have him come out, have this game, right? Some strong defensive impact. He had 9 points, 5 boards, had a few assists, had 4 steals off the bench. That was, a nice way for him. Again, I think collectively the Rockets, first off, I'm sure they got a very firm chewing out from Ime Udoka after the way last game went. And then again, just to respond in this game, right? We talked about it last game. They didn't have the composure down the stretch last game, right? They were able to claw their way back in. They were, a couple possessions out from tying things up with the Suns last game. They couldn't get over the hump, right? And they kind of lost their composure, especially at the end. Ime, Jabari with the technicals about halfway through the game. Like it was one of those games, Sengun ejected. They struggled mentally. I think they beat themselves in certain aspects mentally. This game, the Suns beat themselves, right? Bradley Beal, for whatever reason. I don't even remember seeing what happened. Was Beal just mad that he was getting cooked by Jalen? Like, I don't know what it was.
Oh, see, that stuff had been building for a while because the refs were swallowing the whistle once again in these games, and they were allowing guys to be physical. And Jalen Green was playing really, really physical, good one-on-one defense on Bradley Beal, and he was frustrated that he couldn't get past him, he couldn't get scoring, and he couldn't get going at all this game. And Jalen Green had been his primary defender up until that point. And this is what I talk about. A lot of this stuff goes under the radar of how good Jalen has been defensively in some of these possessions, but he had stopped Beal like 3 or 4 possessions before that initial possession with the issue. So Jalen stopped Bradley Beal. Bradley was upset about it, and then during the inbound, Jalen was talking a little smack, about like, I'm here.
I saw it during the inbound. I didn't see the build up to the inbound.
Yes. So the inbound was about the previous play where Jalen had stopped him, and Bradley Beal had actually stepped out of bounds. The refs missed it, and he kind of just like took a terrible shot. But Jalen was like, I'm here. And that's where the whole Kobe moment comes. Right. And then Bradley trying to fight back and get in his head actually let Jalen get in his head. And, he took a shot at Jalen up top. And I'll say this, bro, that's weak, bro. Like, don't put your hands in people's face. You know what I mean? Like, no matter how much you're struggling in this game, dog, don't put your hands in folks' face. And for Bradley Beal to basically slap Jalen in his face was uncalled for, and that's why I think the refs assessed 2 technicals, because that guy, he needed to be out of the game because that was just above the neck. You know what I'm saying? Is just a no-no.
Of course, it was an intentional shot above the neck. That's uncalled for. That's an immediate ejection just for sure. But it was weak even before he decided to throw his hands, right? Because he did the ball thing, right? He did the ball fake thing, and it was even like the Matt Barnes one with Kobe, right? Matt Barnes did a quick pump fake at Kobe's face and brought it back. Beal did he tapped,
put it on his head
like twice, right? Like on it, kind of in his face, then on his head, like he was really Jalen was in his head rent free, like bothering him. So shout out to Jalen for maintaining, his aggressiveness, right? Because, and this is the kind of game where you get that glimpse, right? We see how good Jalen can be. We see the peak. This is why, the people who are still holding out Jalen stock, you see this type of production and you're like, okay, this is future star potential for sure. But it's also nice to just see him have a bit of that swagger back, right? Like when Jalen got drafted, when we saw him in Summer League, I was in person, I saw him play in Summer League, saw him there his rookie year, sophomore year, whatever. He had a swagger about him, right? He had a confidence about him. And this year, because of, the Rockets trying to mold him and break him down and build him back up with Ime Udoka trying to make him a more well-rounded player, I think that confidence took a bit of a hit, right? That swagger wasn't quite the same as it was the past couple of years. So this is one of those games where hopefully it's something that he can build on. Hopefully it's not just a flash in the pan, which we've seen those before is the problem. We've seen these games where he has, 2 or 3 really, really hot ones in a row and then kind of regresses and goes back. So if this is something that he can build on, he said it post game, he said, this is who we're trying to be every single night. So keep those words true, play like this every single night, come out with that right intensity, energy, physicality, all that. You can be this team every single night. You have the talent to be this team every single night. It's up to the players to deliver on that, though. Coming up, we got final thoughts from this one, as well as Tari Eason update, having surgery on the leg that's kept him out the entire season. More on that here in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports because it's just you against the numbers. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It really is so simple to play. You can make your picks and submit an entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what makes Prize Picks the #1 DFS app on the market. Plus, now it's demon time on Prize Picks. Demons and goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play at Prize Picks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. So if you've been thinking about trying daily fantasy sports, you got to give Prize Picks a chance. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA with promo code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, before we get to our news about Tari Eason and what's going on with his lower leg, very quickly here, just some thoughts on the other 2 Rocket starters because we spent plenty of time on Jalen, Sengun, and Fred, deservedly so. Dillon Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr. I really thought that even though you look at their numbers, their production in this game, 14 points for Jabari, 11 for Dillon Brooks. Overall shooting numbers, 5 of 11 from the 4 for Jabari. Dillon Brooks, 4 of 10 shooting. They were both, first off, they were both much better in the second half than they were in the first half. They were kind of non-existent offensively in the first half. But again, that a little bit by design, right? Like if Jalen's going, if Fred's going, if Alp's going, you don't need those guys taking shots, right? Those guys are ancillary pieces, at least by design in this Rockets offense. I'm not saying Jabari is an ancillary piece. I'd still like him to, be a bit of a bigger piece of this Rockets offense, but we'll save my gripes for another day. Talking about the Rockets offensive hierarchy. Point is, they played their roles. I thought they played their roles perfectly in this game, right? They took the shots that the defense gave them. They didn't force anything, and I think that's the key word. They didn't force anything. And when I say that, we're talking mostly about Dillon Brooks, right? Stay in your lane, do your job, do what you're supposed to do. This is the first game in a while for DB where it felt like he wasn't out there doing the most on the court, and that was kind of a pleasant sight to see for sure.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I thought they had solid games. I mean, Dillon Brooks, I think he played his role like he was supposed to. He took good shots within the offensive game, and I thought he competed on defense. That's all you really can ask for Dillon Brooks and Jabari Smith. And so to me, I don't think they had bad games. I think they were pretty good. And Dillon Brooks, a team I plus 21. You know what I mean? Like, so that just goes to show, that guy wasn't a negative out there on the court. He produced. He was a part of positive basketball out there. So I just thought both of them had a pretty good game. They could have hit a couple more threes, but you miss and make. It's a miss and make league. Sometimes you make them, sometimes you miss them.
All right, well, time for the disappointing news here. We speculated on this for a while. It kind of felt like this was coming down the pipeline, but now we have the official update. Tari Eason out for the remainder of the season officially. Apparently there was a benign growth on his lower leg bone that was pre-existing but flared up due to getting hit. So the injury that he sustained earlier in the preseason when he crashed, he landed, hit the floor in the Pacers game, that preseason game, and then that's the same injury that held him out. What was being classified as a leg, what was it? Soreness, stiffness. I forget what the medical terminology was for it all season long. But basically, the leg injury that kept him out all year, turns out it was a benign growth. And so that's why he's been having this residual pain, discomfort, all that. That's why he hasn't been able to come back. So he is expected to get surgery on this, and he's going to be out for 4 months. So surgery is coming Monday. We don't know. We don't have any update on how the surgery's gone yet or anything, obviously, because it's coming this week. So it'll start off. This is really disappointing. But at the same time, I'm also very happy to hear that it's not something more severe, right? Like I was really worried that this was going to be something, some type of an injury that he was going to have that was going to plague him for the rest of his career, something that was going to, because he was an Iron Man his first year, right? Played all 82 games, one of only 10 players in the entire NBA to do so. We know about his contributions when he's on the court. So hopefully this is a situation that just, he gets the right surgical consult, has a good surgery, no complications, out for 4 months. Timeline wise, he should be we're in March right now. He should be good to go for, easily for the start of training camp next year, as long as there's no complications, nothing crazy going on. And that's the important thing is I think this season, you probably chalk it up to an L. They still have a chance, and we'll talk about this more next episode. The Rockets actually have the 5th easiest remaining strength of schedule for the season, so we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that next episode about the Rockets' chances to actually still make the play-in tournament this year. But yeah, thoughts on Tari and just the news, Madison?
Yeah, so for me, this context, understanding that there was a benign growth that kind of made this injury more tricky and more less textbook than expected. I'm no doctor, but benign growth.
Don't make me bust out the Dr. Madison Moore.
Well, I'm no MD.
Again. All right, there we go.
You're right. I am a doctor, but I'm no MD. Okay, so but to me that makes this injury a lot more tricky, and it seems like when it got re-aggravated, since it had not been giving him problems previously in his career yet, they thought maybe just some rest would allow the swelling to go down and the pain to go down, and he could continue. But it seems that this benign growth did not allow for the healing like they would have liked it to heal. And so they're going to have to, have surgery to really get this under control. But I think that was a tricky injury for the Rockets to deal with. That's a tricky thing. It's not going to be so textbook because of it being not a normal bone, right? You know what I mean? So it's really unfortunate, but hopefully him getting it fixed will bode better for his long-term career. A lot of times, and he's really young, so it should be able to heal a lot better. So hopefully it's a full recovery and he'll be even stronger moving forward.
One of the things that we kind of speculated, and I myself had felt this way, and I know many others have felt this way. It did at the time until now we know, now that the situation is fully transparent, it's nice to know all the information. This is a part of the reason why I wish NBA teams and by extension, all sports organizations were a bit more transparent with the injuries to their players, because if we had known the situation, they had to have known about the growth for months now, right? Like they probably knew about it initially, but it flared up. It was causing issues, which is why it made the injury trickier than before, which is why they kept feeding us the same line over and over, where he's basically, he was, game to game for so long, then he was out indefinitely, then he was ramping up again. And so we didn't know what the hell was going on. We were like, what's the deal with this injury? It felt kind of Kawhi-esque, where we were like, okay, maybe he really is the second coming of Kawhi, because we've got this weird injury that's just going to keep him out all year. A kid. But seriously, now that we know the full transparent situation, I would like to rescind any of my previous comments about, just wondering, did the Rockets medical staff mishandle the situation? Right? I really do. It does genuinely feel like what you said, right? They thought that because he'd played on this for his entire career beforehand, no issues whatsoever, they thought that just rest, time away from the game, no stress to that leg, it would go back to normal and it would heal properly, and then he'd be able to play again on it. Clearly that wasn't the case. Whatever aggravated the benign, situation, it's okay. And I think or the benign growth, I should say, it's not like a completely mismanaged situation, right? They thought they had a proper approach. They thought they had a way to get Tari back this season, rather than doing some kind of invasive procedure early on that would have sidelined him for the 4 months. Now, the issue is if you had done the surgery right away, you could have him back a month ago. I don't know. However long it would have taken. If you would have been out 4 months, then you could have had him back in like February if you'd done it right out the gate, right when it happened. So they risked it. They tried to go the safer route, the non-surgical route, which is probably Tari's preference when you think about it, because he's a guy that wants to play. He doesn't want to miss time. Nobody wants to miss time. Nobody wants to undergo surgery. So understanding all that and getting the full context of the situation, I think the Rockets did their due diligence and they tried to handle it as best they could. Unfortunately, it played out the way that it did, but it's good to hear and good to know that it's nothing more serious and that, hopefully Tari Eason, no complications, knock on wood, he'll be back 100%, in time for next season. And he's got to be back for next season because, look, this season, maybe there's a play-in push, maybe there's not. Next season is going to be where the real money is made because that's where we're going to see, hopefully, another version of the team, be able to take another step forward into phase 2. But Madison, you know the drill with that. Let everybody know where to track you down at, man.
Man, come follow me on Twitter at X at @MadmanLeaks. Come talk Rockets basketball with me.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.